Billy Ray, you ready?
Yes, sir.
Let's do it. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, 614 Radio proudly brings to you the most neutral, the most centrist, the most unbiased podcast in the history of podcasts. I am introducing me, Michael Devine, America's counselor, America's quarterback, Billy Reed.
Hey, hey.
Together we are Gray Matters Radio. And if you ain't down with that, if you're going to call us a Republican, you're going to call us a Democrat, we got 7 words for you. Fuck that noise. My ass is gray.
Ooh, I like it.
Ooh, it's good, isn't it?
Fuck
it's good.
that noise.
Fuck that noise.
Now, I know you're not a big, huge proponent of the F word. I mean, you are, but I don't hear you drop that too much. So when you say it, it actually has some meaning to it.
I try not to. I try to pick and choose my times when I use it. And I'm deciding to use it right there. And I have a new intro. It's very DX-like, but sometimes you need a new intro.
Sometimes.
I think we do.
Well, you're evolving. Everything's changing all the time. Why not us?
Speaking of evolving and changing over time, the Clinton body count. That is definitely
something we have touched briefly on the show before. Well, I was probably pushing it, but yeah, Epstein bites the dust.
He is biting the dust, and frankly, I'm a little scared. That's why I think maybe I did a little bit of a different intro today, because maybe if we sound kind of like nice and kind of like, I don't know, like we sound basically like we're good people, maybe the Clintons won't kill us.
The thing with him, with Jeffrey Epstein, I mean, he's got so many enemies, so many people that stand to not, have a good outcome if he were to name names and this investigation. So while I have no problem putting the fair share of the blame on the Clintons as I have over the years, I can't say for sure if they were behind this. Maybe the guy did just off himself. Who knows? I mean,
I don't know. This
2 presidents he could have potentially had some dirt on. Potentially, I mean, one sitting and one former. I mean, that's pretty powerful people.
It's interesting, isn't it? And originally I wasn't going to necessarily talk about this, but it seems like kind of every week we'll have like something planned, and especially when we do our shows, like we're not going out to like interview people in their location, and so all this Epstein stuff started happening. I'm like, dude, all right, we have to cover this. And it technically goes into what we were going to talk about a little bit.
It's probably the biggest story in the world besides the Russian nuclear explosion.
It kind of is. Now, I might be America's counselor. This might be something I know a little bit about. But when we're talking about like potential, we're talking about serial killers potentially here. Lots of people dead. We had to bring in somebody who technically is an expert on all things kind of screwed up. All things where they almost have like a penchant for understanding sociopathy, serial killers. And when I was thinking about who can I get, I was like, oh, should I get one of my colleagues? I'm like, no, I know just the guy. Big B, Cave Crew Radio. My man, what's going on, buddy?
How are you?
You're in my realm now. I've always been in your guys' realm. This is the first time you've been on my show, which is kind of nice. I like it.
And I like the way you started it off by like being shocked that you said the word fuck. I was told by somebody that I could use the word fuck in any form of in a sentence at any point in time and use it correctly. I could use it as a noun, an adverb, an adjective, a verb at any point in a sentence and use it fine. So you guys being surprised at the word fuck is different to me.
Well, there's actually a story behind it. So I remember but I don't have a story. So one of the first radio shows I was on was Cave Crew guys. They put out a call for, hey, we need a counselor to evaluate us, right? And so these guys really gave me a lot of encouragement and got me going the show. And now one of the rules was there aren't fucking rules, and we're going to, and so I was like, all right, fucking hey, it's my show. I can swear. And now be like, so, the more people start listening, now we have a lot of people have kids and family, and they're like, hey, Mike, I really love the show. Why do you guys swear so much?
Yeah, they're driving down the road and they want to put it on the car or something, and they got the family in there, and and there's Mike
dropping
Devine
F-bombs,
just saying F this, F that. You're out of your effing mind, Bill. Which you tell me that off the air anyway. So you just
so that's the reason why it's like now I try to be a little more choosy of I still swear probably every third sentence. It's just not every sentence.
You've gotten better. You've gotten
a little
better.
bit.
You were borderline Tourette's for I'd say a decade or two. I was kind of worried, but You seem to pull yourself right out of it.
I know,
so.
it's kind of nice. So Big B, my man. So now, so all my listeners here, for one, all right, Cave Crew Radio.
Right.
You guys tend to cover some of the seedier underbelly of just world culture, and that's what I dig your guys' show. You're covering the things that no one else wants to kind of cover.
Right up your alley, Divine?
It's right up my alley. I love it. Right, and now you and I have talked a lot of times off the air, and we've talked about you loved serial killers and sociopathy, and that's why I'm like, dude, if there's anybody that we need to have on the air to get their professional opinion, it's you. So for one, lay out the credentials. Why is it that you love the serial killers and just this part of humanity? Why is that?
It's because I listen to the heavy metal music, man. No,
the devil's music.
Play the records
I
backwards.
always think because you're a metalhead. You like listening to that death stuff. No,
You're into Satan.
Yeah.
So there's a channel called Investigation Discovery. And I started watching it, and I really got into. I mean, it's nicknamed the Murder Channel because every episode, every TV show on there is about death and murder and all this stuff. And I really got into it, but not for the fact of the killing and the gore or whatever, but the psychology behind it, both the murderer and the victim, looking at it from their perspectives on what drives the murderer to do what they did, and what does the victim feel right up until that point, like when they suddenly realize that their life is coming to an end. So then I started reading true crime books and reading about the Iceman and various other mobster guys. And,
that was creepy. Like listening to him. Bill, have you ever watched the interview of the Iceman?
I have.
Oh man,
Did you ever see the movie they made about him?
I seen the documentary.
No, there was an actual Hollywood movie.
No, I didn't.
I think it's called. I believe it's called The Iceman.
It's creepy.
It's called The Iceman, yeah. One of the most fucked up things was in the book, and I don't know, they didn't. I don't think they covered it in any of the interviews or anything. But there was one guy that he was paid to do a hit on. For whatever reason, he decided to be creative with this guy. He hurt him to the point where he was kind of immobile and was on the verge of death. Left him in the forest, left food around him, so he would be eaten by
I remember that one.
the animals. And he would come back periodically to check on him until he was dead, and he, like, without a care in the world. And then he would go to his family, and be like, for all accounts, he was like a good dad. He loved his family. At Christmas time, he brought all the presents and everything. And to him, this was all part of like just his job, like going out to be a construction worker or going to see patients like you. It was just his job. He was going to go out to kill somebody. So I really became interested in what is that mindset like. And that's why I was reading all of these things, and I watched the TV shows, and I watched like the first 48, and I'm interested, like, especially in the first 48 when they have them in the interrogation room, and some people react one way, some people react a different way when they finally come to admit. The hardest thing that I've seen is for them to admit that they actually committed the crime.
Yeah,
they'll commit it with no problem, but then for them to actually admit it is a whole different story. And some of them break down and cry, and a lot of them, will just be, nonchalant about it. So it's very interesting. That's just the psychology behind it, I find very, very interesting.
And that was like interesting with Kokinski was the most interesting of a lot of them because in our psychopathology class, that literally we watched a lot of these videos, we read a lot of the books, and what's interesting is that for the reasons why people kill, you saw with like Ted Bundy, it was almost like a sexual gratification. You saw it with Jeffrey Dahmer. You saw it with John Wayne Gacy. You start getting a little more out there with like Zodiac Killer, Charles Manson, when you have like schizophrenia, to where almost the killing has like a ritualistic, religious, kind of almost like an addictive kind of. Yeah. It's kind of different reason. But Kokinski was interesting because for all intents and purposes, if you look at his parents and they kind of dive back a little bit, you see a lot of the upbringing of some of this screwed up things in the family. But the way he described a lot of this stuff, where it was almost, you're right, like Big B said, just going and doing his business. And they asked him one time, is that, hey, did you ever feel any empathy or feel sorry for any of the people that you killed? And what was interesting, he had to really think about it. like he would almost like try to understand like what he was feeling, and then the psychologist would be like, well, was it this? Was it this? And there's one where, I mean, Big B might know it a little better than I will, where it was like a hit where it was like a mom and a kid walked into the fire and he killed both of them. And what did he say? It wasn't like it's not like he felt sorry, but he knew he should felt sorry. It was like a learned empathy. But it was the creepiest thing to see a guy trying to feel empathy, and he didn't.
But and if I recall correctly with that story, that was the last time he did a woman and a child. He wouldn't do that anymore because he knew. I guess the one small part of him that had some form of conscience knew that was wrong. But again, this was his job, and he's going to go do his job, and he's going to be the best at his job.
Yeah, sounds like a contract killer with a heart.
I mean, yeah,
could be a sitcom.
Probably could actually.
It'd be on Netflix, but still.
I mean, yeah. I mean, honestly, it's probably there's. I mean, I guess Walter White, in Breaking Bad, it's almost kind of the same thing. Is that here's a story of a guy who obviously was a narcissist, but yet he had reasonings and rationale for why it was okay to kill people. And you saw then what he had to go through to kind of find ways of kind of mitigating all that guilt and kind of, sublimating basically a lot of it away. And so people are interested in this stuff. I mean,
people can convince themselves of a lot of things.
Oh, hell yeah.
Right. When they need to, like, you kill people out of necessity. In his mind, while he was a murder for hire, he probably felt, he needed to get paid. He needed to provide food, money, shelter. So me killing you and I get paid for it, I need to do that.
Yeah.
Sorry about your luck, but you obviously pissed off the wrong person to be in this spot.
It's like war. Yeah. It's like you can justify it's wrong to do this, but if I have a reasoning to do it, you can find a way of like justifying it. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah.
And I think he said too in one of the interviews where he said, some people are good at sports, some people are good at art. He was good at killing.
Yeah.
This is what he was good at. And that's what he did.
And that's what's really interesting when we because everyone, I mean, you've probably like, I think for somebody like you, Big B, where like this is something that you have a big interest in it. People, and I think there was a book it was called The Sociopath Next Door, and everyone all of a sudden started going, oh, this person's a sociopath, that person. It's like, no, like sociopathy is like a rare kind of breed. It's not just, that's just like extreme narcissism. And Big B and I were kind of talking ahead of the time about, hey, what example should we use to set things up? And I know I was kind of bringing up Bernie Madoff because from a pure clinical perspective, they were saying that he either was maybe on the autism spectrum or he was a sociopath because there's a clinical interview that they interviewed with him, and he was saying like, listen, like, do you have any like remorse? Do you feel sorry at all for what it is that you did? Because it's like your son committed suicide, you ruined your wife, you multiple people, their families, they committed suicide, you ruined them. Of course, I'm yelling, you destroyed the New York Mets, They did. I mean, I'm a Mets fan. Destroyed the Mets.
Were messed up long
now,
before.
Now, Big B, I don't know if you see that up there. You see a little '86 Mets. Little celebratory right there. So you're wearing a Yankees hat. I mean,
I'm more focused on the Colt 45 Billy D. Williams picture right below.
Hey, it works every time, baby.
Billy D.
But like, so they asked him like all this, and he's like, and he kind of paused for a second. He's like, no, you know what? They're just rich. They're greedy. It's their own damn fault, basically. Like they're rich. They're just trying to get richer, and they lost their money. And then she's like, well. Yeah, but like your own son committed suicide and you purposely deceived them. Like, is there any? He's like, no remorse whatsoever. And so he may have not technically been a serial killer, but it does start opening up the veil of what's going on in this area of America where we have these billionaires, these very rich people who, let's be honest, anybody who's gotten to power, be it a billionaire, hundreds of millions of dollars, politics, right? You got to do some really, really messed up things to kind of get there. And so is it...
Not always, but a lot of them.
A lot of them, right? And so we're lifting the veil of this, and it's like, when we kind of circle back to our boy Jeffrey Epstein, right? And it's like... It's like when we start looking at them, and then, I mean, the first people that got named off were the Clintons, and it's like, what is really going on here in America? Corporate America, we have all these salacious headlines, all these conspiracy theories, all these really fucked up things. And apparently the Clintons have a body count. I mean, what is it, like 56 people that have been affiliated with the Clintons?
Well, and again, not to defend the Clintons before we get started, them being as powerful and as much in the public eye as they've been for the last 35 or 40 years, I mean, you're going to acquire a number of associates over that time.
True, right.
Like, how many associates do I have? 2, and you're one of them, right?
Yeah.
So my point is, though, they're going to have a much broader base of people they've encountered and dealt with on some level or another. However, with that being said, there's still a shit ton of people that have, been associated with them on one level or another that have ended up meeting their early demise through suicide or murder.
I mean,
or
there's a lot. I mean,
just some funky shit.
I mean, I don't know. I mean, Big B, obviously this is something that you pay attention to, right? Is there a pattern here? I mean, should we be afraid of them? I mean, what are you thinking, man?
Well, let me start off by saying publicly first, I have nothing on Hillary Clinton. I know about her. I have nothing to do with her.
Did you vote for her in the Senate?
Get that out there and make sure everybody knows. It's funny when you start going backwards, right? It's way too much to be a coincidence that all these people suddenly committed suicide when they have something or were going to testify to something or had knowledge of something having to do with the Clintons. And you go all the way back to the New York State Senate race. And it's funny, you don't want to bring this up, but JFK Jr.
was going to run.
Was going to run and was going to be Hillary's prime opponent in the New York State Senate race. He dies in a plane crash.
Mysteriously.
Obviously, do I think Hillary, wired the plane? No, of course not. But it's just, you start there and it starts adding up and adding up. That was the way Hillary got into politics, right? Otherwise, before that, she was just the first lady, Bill's wife.
It was what Vince Foster was like. Technically, was that the first body? The Whitewater stuff.
I think it was way back to his days as governor. It's way back. There was people that were, and again, it's people are going to commit suicide. I get that, or people are going to get murdered. It just seems like there was a lot of people that had knowledge or maybe had knowledge of the Clintons, who then all of a sudden mysteriously ended up drowning in 2 inches of bathtub water, or something along those lines. Vince Foster being one of the more prevalent names.
So now this is breaking news right now. They just had breaking news out of the AP that one of Jeffrey's Epstein guards the night he hung himself wasn't even a regular correctional officer.
So where did they get him from? Rent a cop?
I don't know.
First day on the job. Hey, kid, why don't you get in there with Epstein?
But this is what we're talking about. It's like there's a lot of deaths there, right?
What did I tell you earlier? I said, who's guarding these people? El Chapo's prison guards down in Mexico? Do they fly him up? Hey, you do a great job. Come on up here. Yeah, we got
Come on.
Jeez, man.
But I mean,
conspiracy theory when the Attorney General of the United States says, we're going to investigate this death because he was on 24-hour suicide watch and committed suicide.
Yeah.
This is now going to be investigated. So that takes it beyond conspiracy theory and kind of legitimizes that.
See, I agree. The second it happened, I remember when all this went down, I'm going, his ass ain't making it to trial.
I kind of thought
this was
too.
like a mafia movie going, his ass is not making
happening.
it, right?
You're not going to testify in open court about what you know. This is not going to happen.
And this is the thing where it's like, I mean, to me, this almost feels like House of Cards with the Clintons, where it's like when all these random people that that died close to them, and the way it is, it's like it's always connected enough to where you can almost sit there and go, what are the chances? But there's never any evidence, or at least enough evidence to say anything. You're right. It's always like the Navy SEAL that drowned in a tragic bass fishing accident. It's like it's always random things like that. Now, I mean, technically, you could even trace back even before the Clinton body count, the Kennedy body count. I mean, how many Kennedys have been offed, either thinking about running, thought about running, did run? I mean...
And then you got Teddy Kennedy, who just kills people.
Yeah.
We don't know what happened to that lady.
Yeah, and it is crazy, but like, I mean... you do start getting a sense of, and this is, and Mayor Pete said this a couple weeks ago after the shootings, and when they asked him on Fox News, hey, why do you think all these mass shootings? Why do you think all this polarization rhetoric? And instead of just doing like the typical answer, and anytime I think a politician that says something that's really honest, it almost makes you think they did it by accident, or like a wink and nod, like accident. And he basically said that. He went into this whole little explanation of, our government basically has been stagnant, bought and paid for by special interest group. They aren't serving the people anymore. And it's like, basically, what do you think's going to happen when people know this and there's nothing they can do about it? And it's almost like this displaced anger that we're directing on each other. And then you start sitting there going, well, is that these people's plans? If there really is a giant conspiracy theory, is the conspiracy theory like these dumb things that where it's like, well, on the next one it's going to work? Like, think about gun. Like, every time there's a mass shooting, everything always reverts down to, oh, this is a liberal attempt to do some Second Amendment gun grab, and they're going to use mass shootings. Like, man, they've been trying that shit for 9 years. If anything, it works less. If you're that juiced in with like the deep state, don't you think you would have tried something that works a little bit better?
What I want to know is if it is such a conspiracy by anybody to take your guns, and maybe it is. How do you convince these people to go out and do these suicide missions? That's the one thing I never understood about with radical Islam, I understood it a little bit more because they were radicalized, and it was a religious thing, and they really felt that if they did this cause, they would be rewarded in the afterlife. And like, I could almost understand. It's still fucked up and crazy, but I could almost see their pattern of thinking. Where with these folks, I think a lot of them either don't believe in God or they don't. I mean, I'm just guessing here.
So
they've just given up on that.
Someone tweeted me the answer to that question, Bill.
Oh, really?
So they said because the one shooter's dad was a counselor, he goes, this is the deep state's plan to embed their therapist with their own therapy, therapizing their own kid, because that's how desperate they are because Donald Trump has got the deep state on the run, and this is their last-ditch attempt to try to, they're using their own kids and brainwashing.
Huh. Well, that's why I had kids, so I could brainwash them.
Yeah, I mean...
But the thing is, with a lot of these mass shootings, now everybody's focused on the El Paso shooting. He was a white supremacist and this and that. Nobody's talking about the Dayton, Ohio shooter.
Absolutely
because
not.
He was the polar opposite.
He was an Elizabeth Warren fan.
And he was a socialist.
He was, I guess, a member of Antifa. He had very left-leaning posts on his Twitter, and a lot of these, when you look at a lot of these mass shooters, a lot of them have left-leaning ideologies. There's very few of them that are actually right-wing conservative shooters. So that kind of dies, that kind of kills the conspiracy of, we're out to get, the guns, because once that comes out, all the media attention dies, because as soon as it comes out saying, oh, well, they were left-leaning, nobody wants to cover it anymore.
It is pretty egregious when they are totally not at all really covering the other kid, because it almost doesn't fit
the same day.
It doesn't fit the narrative of it being a Donald Trump thing. And that's where it's like, come on, guys. It's like, if you're going to cover it, if we're really about figuring out what's going on, let's cover both. And that's where you start sitting there going, well, is there something to this whole...
Nobody wants to, and by they I mean like no one in the media or the politics, nobody wants to give an inch, and no one wants to acknowledge, that was one of ours that did the shooting. And instead of saying, well, what are we doing wrong, or what are we teaching wrong, or what are we as a society, all of us, doing wrong, or how's it gone off the rails? Instead, they want to be able to point to white nationalism, and then people on the right want to, when something happens, and when they want to point and be able to blame it on radical Islam, it's very comfortable for people to label things that they're not a part of and say, that's the problem over here.
Yeah.
That's the problem over here. Not me, not my cause, not my beliefs. You see how fucked up everybody else is, But when something like does happen, Elizabeth Warren backer does kind of go quiet. Because they'd have to admit, oh man, maybe we got some messed up puppies, some sick puppies on our end too, and they can't do that.
And if you look at from the election in 2016 up until now, all the most violent rhetoric, a good majority of the supposed hate crimes, all occurred by left-leaning liberal people. Right? You very seldomly hear a conservative going out and talking about violent rhetoric. It's always the left's Antifa, the actors that want to blow up the White House. Madonna wants to blow up the White House. Kathy Griffin is holding President Trump's severed head. And
a lot of them are kids. A lot of them are like bullied, angry kids.
You have to look at their entire motto. I mean, look where it starts. It starts with a sticker that says "resist."
Mm-hmm.
That's their rallying cry. Resist. Resist what? I don't know. Resist Trump. it's just
Just resist.
they have that frame of mind is we're not going to go along with anything. I don't care what it would ever. If you're for it, then I'm against it.
Resist hamburgers?
Well, that's just if you're for it, I'm against it. Just because what are you against? I don't know, but it sucks.
and realistically, it stemmed from that they didn't get their way. It sounds overly simplistic, but in my view, that's what happened in 2016. All the new voters, the younger generation, the millennials, came out and they wanted Hillary. They voted for Hillary, fine, or Bernie. Before in the primaries, they wanted Bernie. They didn't get Bernie. They got Hillary. They voted for Hillary. They didn't get Hillary. They got Trump. So ultimately, they didn't get their way. The day after the election, they were talking about resist. Suddenly, President Trump's a racist. I don't know how that happened all of a sudden. He's a xenophobe. He's a homophobe. He's this, he's that. And it all stemmed from because they didn't get their way. Their candidate didn't win. So we're going to resist, and we're not going to embrace the other candidate because I lost.
I think
now, if you look at, he's been called a racist. He was only called a racist once he went up against Hillary.
Exactly.
He wasn't called a racist when he was winning awards alongside Rosa Parks and Muhammad Ali.
Given
he wasn't called a racist when he had the #1 television show on the #1 TV show for however many number of years with The Apprentice. He was never called a racist when he was on WWF wrestling.
I think the thing is,
he ran against Hillary.
It was the Mexican comment. Let's be honest. When he came out as his rallying cry, that's when it went downhill. And I think you're absolutely right. I mean, and I talked about this a long time ago that we're really in gang warfare. I said a long time ago, the Democrats need to be the baby blue Crips, the Republicans need to be the the Bloods, right? Because it was like during Obama when Mitch McConnell and all the guys were just going to obstruct everything. We're not going to pass anything. So then Democrats then go, well, fuck it. When it's our turn, we're going to obstruct. Yeah. And that's basically what happened. You did this to us, we're going to do this to you. You did this to us, we're going to do this to you. And then all of a sudden now it's just you have to escalate. And then when you have social media now basically being like IV drug use, it's like mainlined all this rhetoric. And we wonder why we have people on both sides that are really unhinged being pushed over that edge. But to me, though, and I've always raised on conspiracy theories, whether it be like a Roswell thing or like a Kennedy assassination, where you have very legitimate things to look at and you have motives. You have, if anything, you have a patsy, right? It's always easy, and you kind of mentioned it a second ago, Bill. It's like it's really easy when you have like a person, right? This person or that person, but when we're talking about conspiracy, it's really multiple people all getting together to commit a crime. And a lot of times, especially with social media and the media now, you have a patsy. But what if the patsy wasn't just a person? What if the patsy was a whole group of people? And so if we're really going to bring this whole thing, like the Epstein thing, the Clinton body count, I think we have to look at, well, if there is conspiracy, or we are talking about sociopathy. Big B, you were saying, like, if you were to pick like the top 2 or 3 motives for serial killers, mass killers, ranging from the craziest to the crazy, what would you say like the top 3 motives are for people to commit crime on a mass level?
Well, if you're looking at serial killers, the #1 motive generally is to fulfill some sort of sexual fantasy.
Right, some deviant, obsessive, compulsive, yeah.
Stems from a childhood, for the most part, a childhood incident, mostly involving their mother, because men are generally the serial killers, and they a lot of times they kill females. It's generally stemming from their mother, and it's to fulfill some form of sexual fantasy, whether it be revenge, getting some revenge against their mother. Another reason would be not for sexual fantasy, but for some driven need to feel complete almost. It's so there's something in them that doesn't feel right unless they're acting out and committing a crime. And that happens, a lot of times when it's more like a spree killer. They're calm, they're okay for a while, and then they'll go out and kill, and then they'll be okay for a little while. Almost like BTK.
Yeah. It's very much a compulsive behavior, to where there's maybe periods of time where it's like kind of over control, out of control, and then it's compulsive, and every time they do it, you reinforce it, and then it gets so out of control, and that's usually right before they get caught is when they're getting so sloppy. You saw that with Ted Bundy, you saw that with Jeffrey Dahmer. That's usually what kind of gets them caught.
Hmm.
Any other big ones would you say? I know I got a couple neurological bases I'll throw out there, but any other big ones that really jump out at you?
I mean, those are the big two that I see most of the time.
Yeah.
Being sexual, and then that compulsion, that need to feel whole. Um, a lot of times it's a solitary thing too. A lot of these killers are maintain a solitary life, and they kind of within themselves build things up in their mind where they have to lash out.
Yeah.
And that kind of goes along the lines of the compulsive behavior too. It stays calm and builds up and builds up and builds up. They lash out. It brings it back down to a normal level that they can live with for a little while, and then keeps building up, and going out.
Yeah, and I think like probably I'd say like probably the last big one, and technically could have components of all three. So there was a criminal psychologist who and criminal neurologist who was doing research with functional MRI, and so he had a theory that some sociopathy was caused by there's an area of the brain, it's behind our eye, it's called the prefrontal orbital cortex. It's a part of the brain where basically it takes everything that we see in that front part of the brain, because that's our thinking part of the brain, how we reason, how we think and problem solve, and it basically sends all that information to the emotional part of the brain. And that theory was people who have an underdeveloped prefrontal orbital cortex, it's like their brain literally doesn't send that information to the emotion part. So it's almost like they have no emotion. We call it predation. So like if you look at it like a wolf hunting its prey, its heart rate is going to be totally normal. It's not overly excited. It's just what it kind of does. And so he did MRI imaging. It was funny because he actually had it. That part of his brain underactive, but he's like, but when they did all these serial killers, it was like 70% of them had that low activity. So that's when he's like, well, why is it some of them have it and some of them don't? And that was the $1 million question he could never fully answer. Some of it was nature versus nurture, where, people grew up in a certain household, and you see it with them as kids, where like Jeffrey Dahmer wasn't exactly abused. He was abandoned as a kid. His grandparents, I believe, raised him, as I remember correctly. And you see them hurt animals because, and you saw this with Kolkinski, is that he talked about a story of throwing a cat and throwing dogs into incinerators and watch them. And he did it purely to see if he could feel something. And when he didn't feel something, he would go further. Couldn't feel something. They kept like testing the boundaries of what can I do. And then with a true sociopath, there is no boundary. They just don't have that connection is what really makes it scary. But then what made it interesting, where you have a guy like Bernie Madoff, where, for all intents and purposes, had a totally normal childhood. I mean, I'm sure if we go back and look at his family, you might find some things, but nothing that would 100% explain no empathy or emotion for your son committing suicide, no culpability. Look at PharmaBro, Martin Shkreli. He had one company that was so bankrupt, and he was trying to cover his ass with his investors. So when he got appointed CEO of the pharmaceutical company, his way of recouping the cost was to jack up the price of a life-saving AIDS medication, like 1,000% or 2,000%. And then when they asked him in jail, like in his trial, he goes, no one lost money. They all made their money back. He didn't make that connection at all with, wow, you made a medication unaffordable for people. We have the people with raising the price of insulin 1,000%, and no connection at all with, oh wow, you have moms and dads hoarding onto expired insulin or epinephrine pens, and just like, well, the market called for that. We could get away with it. We weren't doing anything no one else was doing, and you see this time and time again. Boeing 737 MAX. After that first accident, they already kind of knew something was up, but they didn't alert anybody. Internally, they talked about it. Pilots were advocating for it, but yet once again, they didn't feel as though, well, I mean, we're just following.
Same thing with GM.
GM with the
that still pisses me off to this day.
I mean, Toyota with the cruise control sticking. You had Ford and the Pinto in the 80s. I mean, the list goes. I mean, it's true. They're blowing up. They're hitting from real, So it's like
Fiero.
The Fiero. I mean, well, Fiero is just a travesty in and of itself, but
no, but that car would catch fire.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, we have all these stories. You see it with like Ford, with the Ford Explorers, where all these cops were getting carbon monoxide poisoning. Well, we can't find anything. It's like, well, before they had that, they weren't getting it, and you see this time and time again. Okay, that it's like no empathy, no emotion, but yet these don't follow your classic signs and symptoms. But yet, how many people have been hurt, killed, even to suffering? For what? Money, greed, power,
Sure.
right? And so,
People with power will do anything they can to hang on to that power or gain more.
yeah,
That's just what they will do.
it's true. And do you justify it? If we were to get the Clintons in a room, like a Richard Kolkinski, would you get well, you see, everyone else is doing it, and what we thought we were doing was for the greater good. We thought we were going to do this, and if a couple people had to die or if they were getting in our way, I mean, B, do you think we're getting to a territory now where if we are talking about conspiracy theories and if some of these things are true, are we reaching a new level of sociopathy and serial killer almost?
Well, when you talk about all these people in industry, I mean, that's been happening since the Industrial Revolution.
That's human
right?
nature.
I mean, that's how industry grows.
Yeah.
These people have to become emotionally detached because in their mind they have to crush their enemies and crush their opponents to be number one. They want to make money. They don't care how they make money. They want their company to be number one. They want to make all the money, and they don't care who they hurt in the meantime. It's all about them. It's a very narcissistic approach to things. It's all about me.
Yeah.
And there's a ton of CEOs out there and a ton of people that have built successful businesses that have the exact same traits that aren't bad people.
Yeah.
But they still have the mindset that, you know what, you come up against me, I'm going to crush you. Yeah. I don't care who it hurts, even if it hurts my family. I don't care what happens. It's funny we're talking about this because I last night on the History Channel was the first episode of a miniseries called The Food That Built America. And it's all about where, Heinz first came in and Kellogg and all that. And Kellogg in particular was the two brothers that ultimately went to war against each other to outdo each other, and one winning, building the cornflakes and all that. But, he destroyed his own family. They destroyed their own family to be number one.
Yeah.
So that's been happening since, the Industrial Revolution.
I mean, think about
it's just more prevalent now, I think, because of social media.
Yeah.
Because of, the world is a hell of a lot smaller than it was in 1875.
And so think about and that's where I start looking at if the underlying motive for these people, like not feeling empathy or emotion, having some self-serving purpose that is more important than the suffering that it causes, right? So if Kolkinski, let's say, killed, what they say, over 70, 80 people, they think maybe, they don't know 100% what, but it's like, well, how many people have died due to drug prices being too high? How many people have died due to faults in cars or equipment? How many people have been injured, paralyzed? I mean, fuck, you got to look at Hitler's the biggest sociopath of all time. Cut how many millions of people as a politician? How many politicians started wars that maybe they shouldn't have because of some self-serving power grab? I mean, if we're really being honest here, are we reaching a time of society where we almost have to start asking yourself the question of if it's this prefrontal orbital cortex where it's almost sitting there waiting. It's almost like massaging it. Given the right circumstance, are people being put into positions where power and greed corrupt, and they're surrounded in a cesspool of everybody is willing to climb their way to the top. Everybody is willing to do it, even any other businesses. And they could be very well be responsible for more people dying and being injured than all the serial killers that we've, looked at combined. I mean, that's what's kind of scary. I mean, look at Jeffrey Epstein. I mean, how many people did that guy abuse?
How many lives did he ruin?
How many lives did he ruin? I mean, and this was, it's interesting. We're kind of trying to figure out okay, what's the truth, with whole Epstein, right? I mean, look at all the names of the people this guy was connected to, right? So we have Donald Trump, Bill Clinton. We have, let's see here, Kevin Spacey, Chris Tucker, that socialite Giselle Maxwell. I guess it's his ex-girlfriend, the madam of the damn thing.
Now she can still name names, right?
Yeah. Prince Andrew,
No,
Governor Bill Richardson.
Let me ask you, if you're the madam, Are you nervous? Are you sweating bullets
Oh
right
fuck
now?
yeah, you know they are.
Are-
You know her at
you know her, man.
I mean, Les Wexner. I mean,
Les
dude, and
Wexner.
that's what's crazy. People are like Les Wexner, like, oh, 'cause my dad used to work for the Limited. I remember rumors. I was too young, but like, there's rumors about man, he was a fucking pervert and a freak back in the day. My dad used to tell all kinds of crazy stories about Les Wexner and that he was like bisexual and loved young boys. I mean, dude, and that's why it's like when people are like, oh my God, Lex Wexner couldn't have done that. Like, fuck, man, but I was talking about this shit 20 years ago, you know? And so
Well, the
it's,
same thing with Jeffrey Epstein. Like I heard those rumors of that Lolita Express, his
yes.
plane. I heard that a decade ago.
Yeah.
I didn't know who he was.
Yeah,
Like,
I mean,
who?
Clinton flew on it. Trump flew on. I mean, like, you had all these people, and it's like we're sitting there talking about the Clintons. Now, Clinton have a body count, right? But are we getting lost in the weeds? If there is a conspiracy, and we're in this era of media, that means that they're using psychological warfare, misdirection, right? And if what Mayor Pete is saying, this insider, he's not even technically an insider, he's just the mayor of South Bend, is sitting there going, listen, you want to know why there's shootings? Look at our government and people being angry and all our government being completely corrupt. And so is there this, there's this, you get this sense where if there is a conspiracy theory, the conspiracy theories that get us to think it's one person, the other person, getting us chasing our tails, getting us argue, and people doing, right, probably like punch boards of lines everywhere. But the reality is, it's like there's a lot of people that probably are going to go down because of Epstein with what's already out there and what's yet to be found, if we're really being honest here.
And I don't know if it'll ever come to light. I mean, some of it will, but I think a lot of it's going to. I think the madam has seen what's going on. Now, whether he killed himself or not, maybe he did. But she's got to know that there's at least some people out there with money and power who would not mind seeing her silenced. Which I mean, let's be honest.
Yeah, I mean, you're up there in New York, man. I mean, like, what are you hearing up there, man? I mean, what are people saying in the local news? Because I think we get a lot of the salacious stuff down here.
Yeah,
but what are they saying in the local news up
did
there?
the New York Times change their headline again to meet the liberal narrative?
Well, yeah, you have to understand here in New York, it's extremely liberal media. Yeah, we have Fox News here, but for the most part, it's extremely liberal media. So they're going to follow the narrative too. Not one of them is going to say, oh, it's a conspiracy and he really didn't kill himself. They're all going to go by the book and say, oh, he killed himself. The attorney general said there's going to be an investigation, blah, blah, blah. They're not going to come out and that's part of the dishonesty of the media now too, right? Because they all follow a book of, for the most part, the liberal media will follow the left-leaning book of these are our headlines. This is what we're going to talk about. We're not going to deviate from this. We're not going to have a normal opinion on anything. It's going to be fed to us by those in power.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, and I've said this for a long time now, we need a Walter Cronkite.
Yeah.
Because too much of the media now is we're going to give you your opinion and you're going to take it and feed it to somebody else.
Instead of just reporting on the facts.
Anymore. Yeah, there's no facts anymore.
It's all
facts
editorial.
And that feeds into all of this, the conspiracy theory and all that, because then basically the nightly news is social media on a bigger platform. It's, I have an opinion, so I'm going to say this.
And I think that part of the reason why people get hyped up is I think the media, and I know we can blame video games, we can blame politicians, we can blame a lot, and I think everyone's kind of got an equal share in the blame, so to speak. But I think it's our culture in general, and part of our culture, I think a big part of it is the media, both the liberal and conservative. They get their quote-unquote groups of people so hyped up, some more than others, but they're saying, this is what the other side is trying to do to you, and if someone doesn't stop them or put their foot down, man, you can just kiss your future goodbye. It doesn't matter what you believe. That's what they're kind of pushing. And here's an example today, and here's an example tomorrow of what happened, and they want to take your guns, or they want to take away your ability to have an abortion, or they want... And maybe that stuff is true, but they turn it up. They really squeeze it to people and say, do you know what's going to happen if somebody doesn't put it... And I think that if this finds a home, and these people that are obviously mentally deranged or easily influenced or easier influenced, or who maybe are already on the edge to begin with, I don't know.
And that's where it feels like I may be. I mean, like, do you think, honestly, do you think it's sociopathic if you have people, whether it be media, leaders of campaigns, and they're purposely distracting, purposely dividing, purposely riling up people, pitting everyone against each other? That's one, directly at the negative of the country, tearing it apart. Two, now we have people being pushed over the line that are mentally unstable, that are going and killing people now. I mean, purposely gaming the system that it should be for the whole country. I'm making it my just for me and my types of people. And then not only that, we're going to lie to you guys about it. And if anything, then turn you guys against each other so you don't look at us. I mean, you're a serial killer expert and our sociopathic, expert. Is that sociopathy if it's having the same net effect? It's just you're doing it by proxy.
Well, if you want to go on the full conspiracy theory, let's go all the way.
Yeah,
and let's bring it to
let's go balls deep into it.
Two people, or the two groups of people supposedly controlling everything. On the left, you have George Soros, and on the right, you got the
Kochs. Yeah, Kochs. Cox. Yeah, Kochs.
So if you want to go sociopathic and really go that way, you're looking at George Soros, who's funding all of this and wants his one world order in his vision, in his mind. This is the way it should be, and he's funding all the news down into the news networks to funnel out to the general public. And then you have on the other side the Koch brothers, who are trying to do the same thing on the right side. So if you want to go really conspiracy theory, those two, George Soros and the Koch brothers, are the two ultimate puppet masters that are the ultimate ones controlling everything.
And it's like, imagine, and they know what they're doing, but then it's just to keep doubling down on it. And then to me, that has to take a different breed of sociopathy. It really kind of does. And is it like a Kolkinski where it's like it's a war. This is a war that I was born into or brought into, and I'm just fighting it the way that I need to. I mean, and they go home and they have wine with their families and hey, honey, how was your day? Well, I fucked some little boy in the ass today. It was awesome. I mean, but hey, it was Philippines. It was legal.
You know what it reminds me of when you guys are talking about these really rich old people that try to influence everything, and we want it to be my way, and then the other people on the other side are saying, well, we're going to try to be our way, so we're going to maybe outspend you or give more money or whatever their deal is. I almost get the feeling that they're probably all old friends, and I picture like the old guys from the movie Trading Places.
Oh yeah,
who bet $1 to see if they could have Billy Ray Valentine be good at his job.
It kind of
I
feels
feel like behind
that.
closed doors, like the Koch, Koch brothers, whatever their names are, probably have a $1 bet with Soros, and Soros is going, I bet you I can make it this way before you can make it your way.
So now I came prepared. All right. So I think, all right. So that's a good conspiracy theory. All right. So we got Koch and Soros. All right. And this is their battle, and we're all pawns, and they maybe have some weird justification. You get to go home and once again drink their wine and
do it for fun. I don't know.
For fun, right? So I got a different one. All right. So I'm going to go more UFO and alien-esque to it, all right? So I kind of says to my dad, and you look at, like, the environment, global warming, and just plus is how fucked up everything is, right? It's like, it's so obvious that, all right, like, we all know things are going in a bad direction, and then they keep doubling down on it. And I go, it's almost like, like when you have, like, a rental car that you don't give a shit about, and you drive the fuck out of it because who gives a fuck? I'm trading this. I'm turning in at the end of the day. I don't give a fuck. I'm going to screw it up, right? It's like the planet. You really get this sense where it's almost like this is a rental car to them, and they're running it like they're gonna be leaving deuces at the end of the day, right? And I remember a conspiracy theory about the grays and the the green little short ones. I can't remember what they call them, and
the greens.
The greens, yeah, I think it's greens, isn't it?
I have no idea.
It's something like that. No, they're the grays, right? And so they're like energy beings, right? And like the big conspiracy theory is that it's like they're not destroying us, and they kind of give us technology to keep us at bay, but their job is to create chaos because they want our energy. They feed off our energy, and it's about creating all this very intense chaos, and they keep doubling down on it and doubling down on it. And it's almost like they know that, we know that. Well, we don't really know it. Maybe subconsciously we do. And that basically it's why they don't give a shit, and they're purposely destabilizing because they need to, because that's how they're getting all that energy basically. And that basically they know they're going to leave or they're going to destroy it all. And That's why they don't give a shit. And that maybe there's some, that's, to me, that makes sense, because it's like the route that they're going with the chaos, eventually it's all going to tear each other apart anyway. In the history of civilizations, there's always been like some uprising because there's much more of them. Like, think the Area 51 raid. 2.5 million people are running in there. It's like, all right, what if 20 million people stormed the White House? And just, it's tough to stop that many people, right?
Oh, you couldn't. I mean,
so that's my theory. So do you have? I mean, do you have a some plausible explanation that's differing than ours that could somewhat explain what the hell we're seeing?
well, I like your idea of how the aliens are using this planet as their lost world theory, where we're just kind of the runoff.
Well, and allegedly Hillary and all of them are shapeshifters.
Well,
reptilians. Reptilians.
lizard,
that's their
yeah,
name.
the lizard people.
Yeah, the reptilians
Everyone
are shapeshifters.
Everyone knows this.
Yeah.
I mean,
So all right, that's my theory. All right.
How
It's
do
tough,
I
it's tough to stop
that
these
theory?
two. I mean, these are two good ones, right?
Shit. I that was a perfect response. I don't know what even to. Big B, your thoughts?
Is there another theory out there that we can possibly come up with? So we got mass sociopathy. They just don't give a shit. We have the Soros Koch gang war that just like, well, it's just price of doing business. We got our alien energy harvesters, right? Is there any other one we can come up with that even makes sense? Is there maybe one that isn't like kind of like bad and nihilistic and we're all fucked? I can't come up with anything. I try to be optimistic. I'm sorry, guys. I know I'm supposed to be America's counselor, but being America's counselor, sometimes you gotta give it to you straight. Shit sucks. It ain't good. Smoke them if you got them, folks.
I mean, realistically, this has been going on for centuries. Exactly what we're going through now has been going on for centuries. It's just that, like I said before, the world is smaller.
Yeah.
We have 24/7 access to everything all over the planet. Whereas in, like I said, 1875, you had Pony Express and you had a newspaper once a month. So, you didn't get all the news. So I really think this is normal. It's just that we're more aware of it now.
And on that note, I do have one last theory. And technically, if I'm really being honest, I mean, all these play. All right, let's be honest. I think in the gray, every theory, we're going to play every theory, right? So I was talking to someone else about this, and this is what I call the sad theory, but at least the sad theory is something that we can undo. So, in Big B, you said it your best, man, is that we are stuck in this human drama, and that doesn't matter the time period. This has been playing out throughout humankind. Mm-hmm. There's been sociopaths, there's been mass murders, there's been people. We look at serfdom and fiefdom, right? I mean, everyone always had an explanation, a rationale for why it was okay to do a bad thing, right? I mean, I guarantee if you ask the Romans, why'd you kill Jesus? Oh, I mean, dude, that's the way the laws were, and we thought he was a heretic. We had to go after him, right? I was just following orders, right? Even the Nazi guards were like, I was just following. I mean, it is the human condition, right? And given being in the right circumstance, the right situation, it's just like if you look at some of the war-torn parts of South America, Africa, it's like the countries aren't run full of sociopaths and murderers. It's just they were born into situations where you do what you have to do to survive, and you can rationalize almost anything. And I think the saddest part about this last theory is that, are we stuck in a human melodrama where there isn't a conspiracy? There isn't some overarching thing where it's almost like a bad a cycle, almost like a bad game of telephone, where it's like, I'm thinking this, which then makes them do this, which then makes them do this and makes them do that. And it almost makes this nightmare reality. And due to these theories, this imaginary conspiracy theories we come up with, we play it out that makes it reality. And what if it really isn't reality? It's just the human condition, and we're playing into it. And that would be sad, because it means it's fixable. But do we have the ability to overcome it, especially when our social media has shaped our view of reality so much in such a negative way? And it's happened so quickly. But then also, can we use it to do the opposite? If it changed so quickly, can we do the opposite and course correct it that quickly? And I think that's what is our challenge, I think.
I think that the Clintons are lizard people.
Oh, okay. Well,
and they're secretly running the world. That's why I like that theory. I think that's what's going on. That's the real shit.
Yeah. I'm still kind of curious about Stu. Is Stu, you think, like a reptilian or a gray. I don't know if he's of this planet. He
Like a
has an
gray
odd.
reptile.
He has an
I
odd
always
energy to him. It's not just like the whole British energy. I
I've
don't know,
always
man.
said from day one that he was a serial killer. From those days where he was talking to us on his cell phone in his car under a bridge at 3 o'clock in the morning UK time, whispering, yeah, guys, I'm in the car. Wait, there's somebody.
You do realize if that's true, you guys are going to be on like one of those like Netflix like real stories, and then there's going to be me going, I assessed this guy, and I've been saying it the whole time, and that it's just, let's be honest, right? So I think any way we look at it, I think any way we look at it is that there's a lot of really messed up things going on, and regardless of if it's a melodrama playing out, whether it be there really is like some sociopaths running all of our businesses, and it's like I think as people, the only way they can get away with those things if we allow ourselves to fight with each other and not ask questions, not really look at things and really try to understand like what are people's motives and what power do we have? Because that's the thing. It's like we have all the power in the world. It's like in Austin Powers where the steamroller is getting towards and running a mile an hour. He's like, no. No, it's like 5 minutes later. No, that's how I feel as people, as a country, and as a world. We act like we're that powerless, but the reality is we're now more than ever. If we're not divided, we don't keep playing that game that they want us to go against each other. If we kind of go, hey, wait a minute. Whoa, 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 whoa! Why are we fighting? It's like the girl that cheated on, each of us with each other, and they get us to fight over their honor. It's like, wait a minute, that bitch is the one that cheated on us. Why are we fighting with each other? I'm gonna go out for a beer. Fuck this noise. That's what I feel. I mean, it might be kumbaya-ish.
She's a hoe for show.
That's what I think. It really needs to happen, and imagine if that happened like tomorrow, where Democrats probably go, wait a minute, whoa.
So you're saying that the politicians basically are the hoes.
Yes, yeah.
And
we got cheated on.
The rest of us that are getting the shaft.
Yeah.
Got cheated on.
We got cuckolded.
And now we're fighting amongst ourselves, and she convinced everyone, you guys should fight each other.
We got cuckolded. Like David Lindhagen cuckolded me. It's true.
That's actually a pretty good analogy.
I mean, seriously. I mean, am I wrong, B? I mean, is it almost like we're all being cuckolded? We all got cheated on. Why can't we sit and go, wait a minute, that bitch cheated on us. Why are we arguing with each other? Can we go out and get a beer, get drunk, and figure out how we're going to fuck them up?
And
not saying I'm about fucking a girl up just because you cheated on us. No, not the whole Me Too. I'm just saying,
not
theoretically speaking,
mentally.
Metaphorically speaking,
Yes, hashtag Me Too.
Shit. I got to erase that.
No,
Michael Devine can be reached at. Michael Devine at Gray Matters.
It's funny, everything in social media and the talking heads and the influencers out there want to keep us divided. But when you go out like me and you, or you go out into your job, you go out into everyday life, none of us are divided. We all are out to make money to bring home to our families. I don't care who you voted for. We're working together. This is part of our job. We're not going to talk politics. We're going to talk work. Yeah. And outside of when you get up from your computer and get up from your TV and walk out your door and go on with your life, nobody's divided. Not one person is divided. Of course, you have your small extremist groups out there, but for the most part, 98% of this country is not divided.
Dude,
exactly.
And
the talking heads want you to believe that so you can be on their side.
Yeah. 100%. And honestly, like the whole idea of my show came about that we have people that we grew up with way ends opposite end of the spectrum, but we can go out to the bar, have some beers, bust each other's balls, get into a few little tiffs, but we love each other. We're getting along great. And that's what scared me about what's happening in the country when all of a sudden we weren't even able to do that anymore. You have people not even talking, and it's like we haven't changed. The only thing that's changed is those people riling us up for their own gang, and it doesn't have to be that way. Right. You're a Yankees fan. I'm a Mets fan. We could be in a Subway Series. The Mets could beat you. I'm gonna bust your balls, but we're gonna have a beer. We are going. I'm not saying they're gonna be. I'm just using it as an example.
Let's just start right
I'm
there.
still waiting for that to happen, but okay, sure.
Ooh, okay. Haven't we been in the World Series? In like the last 20 years? And when's the last time you guys were there? 2004?
2009, and we won.
Was it 9? Okay, it was like
The
4 or 5.
last time the Mets were there was in what,
15? Yeah,
2000,
15,
I think, and the
14?
Yankees beat them.
Nah, 2014, 15.
Oh
We
yeah, they lost to
lost
the
in Game
Royals.
6 to the Royals.
You lost to the Kansas City Royals.
Yeah,
Think
dude.
about that for a
They
second.
had the best bullpen in baseball that year, man. Dude, they were tough. Their
Great.
bullpen was stellar. They had no starting staff, but all their starters had to do was go to like the fourth inning, and then they were like lights out, dude. It's fucking Eric Hosmer, dude, motherfucker. He scored on Lucas Duda that one game. That was it. I
It's
also
like
blame
losing
Matt
the
Harvey.
Super Bowl to the Cleveland Browns. Come on.
Hey, I'm an Eagles fan, so hey, I got a Super Bowl a couple years ago, so I'm good.
I'm an Oakland Raider fan. Our team sucks.
Oh, what? Well, AB, what the? Man, that's a different show, different time. But man, AB
that's a
is
whole
even
other
gonna play?
conversation.
That guy's fucking crazy, man. We need a whole show just on AB, I think. Oh man. But anywho, it's just, and I think you said it best, Chip, man. I mean, it's just we gotta.
What can we do about it? That's gonna be my question.
I mean, honestly, I think a lot of it is we have to kind of sit here and all kind of go, listen, like, wait a minute, like, I'm being screwed, you're being screwed. I talked to this guy and they're going, well, you have it all great. And it's like, I don't have it great. This other guy says, well, no, it's the other guy that has it great. None of us have it great. We're all being pinched. We're all being screwed over, and we're all in the same boat. And I think if we have the ability, whether it be over beers, whether it be listening to shows like this, whether it be talking again, and I think it'd be very easily proven that we're all being screwed over. They're all doing it for themselves, and it's time that we stop doing their work for them and we start asking the real questions of like, what the fuck are you guys doing? What the fuck are you doing? And we start asking the right questions, not the questions that they have framed. Like, they're always really good. Like my personal favorites, like Tucker Carlson, he'll have somebody on there and they're like, well, it's not exactly like that. And he's like, no, I'm not talking about that. We're not, but that's not the right answer. I'm not talking about the right. I'm talking just yes or no. Is his skin black? Well, there you go. Boom. Mic drop. That's it, folks. It's like, but if we ask the questions, or if we can control going, listen, if you guys don't ask the right questions, or you're inciting violence, we're not going to watch you anymore. Can you imagine if 20 million people go, I'm not watching Fox News anymore. I'm not going to watch CNN. I'm not going to watch MSNBC. Can you imagine the balance of power if tomorrow they lost 20 million people, no one watching?
Are you amazed, like, how much higher Fox News rating is than CNN's? It's amazing. They're like more than their prime time numbers.
They're the ones that crafted
they're like more
24-hour news, man, and they're the OGs of it.
I can tell you, even like when I voted for Obama, like I had to stop watching Fox News for a while because it was the same reason why I can't watch CNN now. Is they just constantly bash the president.
Yeah.
I got tired of watching Fox News saying, we hate Obama. Obama's terrible. Here's why he stinks. Blah 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 blah. After a while, I'm like, I can't listen to this. Now you go to CNN. It's like that on steroids about Trump. I can't watch CNN anymore. I'm like, you guys took Fox News' playbook and you said, let's just turn it from a 5 or 6 to a 10, and we're gonna run that shit all day, every day. And then you throw that, that and throw in with like race, talk about racism, and that's all we're gonna talk about. And holy cow!
If we started a show in a network called "Fuck You, It's Your Fault," I guarantee you it'd be the highest fucking ratings. All it is a show saying "fuck you" and why it's your fault and not mine.
Well, not yours. The other side.
No, it's their fault. Yeah. Fuck you, it's your fault. It ain't my fault. It's your fault. So I mean, but yeah, I really think it all comes down to if we stop fighting, realize we're all in this together. We're all getting fucking cuckolded. We're all getting cheated on, and we all point the finger and just go, listen, you guys are fucking us. We're done doing your guys' dirty work. Then all of a sudden we come together as a country, and it happens very quickly. But we need that catalyst. That's the one I'm scratching my head on. That's why I'm doing what I'm doing, but. I don't know. Big B.
Unfortunately, I don't see it. I don't see it happening because if that was to happen, we as a country would almost have to stand up and go backwards in technology.
Yeah.
Because everybody is driven by their computers. They have mini computers in their phones. Everybody's on social media. Everybody would have to stand up, say, you know what? I'm not going to be on Facebook anymore. I'm not going to be on Twitter anymore. I'm going to talk to my neighbor, and we're going to form opinions together.
How do you make that happen? How do you make a catalyst for people to go, not necessarily let go of the things that we need to do our jobs, but it's like, how do we get people to do that? What catalyst would we need? And it has to be something big. It has to be like an atomic surgical bomb.
Well, like you said, we almost need, like, I hate to say it, but we almost would need another 9/11 to
But
bring people together.
that's what Antifa and all them wants. Antifa wants to blow the whole fucking thing up, right? I think the other side wants to get rid of a whole group of people to, like, well, fuck it. We get rid of all the undesirables, whether that be Democrats, whatever. We're good then. It's just us left, right? I think it has to be a surgical precision guided bomb where it doesn't involve blowing the whole system up, but it also doesn't mean we're eradicating 51% of the country. And that's what our challenge is. And I think we have to keep asking the question, but we need all of us together to kind of start coming up with it. It's chicken or the egg, but at least it's conversations like this where we can kind of make it kind of go. So, yeah. So I don't know. I don't know if we've made a difference, but at least we've had a good conversation. We kind of realized that we're all being fucked over. We're all being cuckolded. Maybe there's some aliens out there kind of doing it for us.
Make that a drinking game.
I think
every time you say that word.
I got cuckolded. Oh, shot.
You don't want to get Munson way out here in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah, there you go. So, all right, before we bust out of here, Big B, my man. So tell us where we can find you, Cave Crew Radio, man, and wherever else we can find you at.
CaveCrewRadio.com every Thursday night live at 8 p.m. Eastern Time. You can hear me, DK, and Choo Choo Stu talk about weird Florida news and making fun of Stu's internet connection. We have interesting guests like Michael Devine on.
That's right. Yeah. You know, it's you guys are. It's funny because I think there's in a time where there's so much this bullshit and everyone's so angry. I love listening to these guys because it's just nice just hearing a bunch of guys. It's like a bunch of your friends hanging out, busting each other's balls, you know, borderline pushing a little bit too far, talking about the fucked up shit that they heard throughout the day. And so that's what we all need, a little bit of that in our life. We're all a cave crew in all of our own realms, and these guys are just taking it to the internet. And I'm glad you guys are doing what you're doing, Big B. I'm happy for being you guys, finally getting you on the show. I want to get the whole gang on the show because we got to talk about healthcare. I want to hear about Stu talking about healthcare in England. I want to hear DK talking about it in Canada, you know. And when you talk, I mean, I don't know if it's any different in New York, but it is kind of a socialist state up there from what I hear.
Oh my God. It's fucking awful.
So to be continued. We're going to get the whole crew in here next time. All right. Okay. So
I think before you have the whole crew, you need to do a one-on-one entire show with Stu.
Oh God, it scares me though, man. I'll have to do it like at fucking 5 a.m. or something, dude. It's all right. I can maybe get on some little head chain, maybe a little, I can get really intoxicated and just see what happens at 5 a.m. when I'm talking to
Is that what you're going to do? You're going to get really
intoxicated? If you listen to Stu, you would understand very quickly. It's, yeah. I think even Freud would agree with me on that one.
If that's his real name even.
I don't even know. He is a train driver, so I don't know. The Tube. Ooh.
Is he really a train driver?
That's exactly what I was about to say. I don't know. What is the Tube?
Well, they practically drive themselves.
Late nights.
Oh, shit. All right, let's get out of here, all right? Well, that note, I am Michael Devine.
Allegedly.
Allegedly, I am Michael Devine. I'm allegedly the guy that basically, kind of does a show where it's about helping people. Yeah. Apparently, it's on a network. And apparently, I'm with a guy named Bill Reed, the armchair quarterback.
Don't say my name on
I'm
the air.
Apparently on the air with a guy named Big B, but who knows anymore?
This could all be a big conspiracy. We're not even on the show.
I just don't know.
This is more misdirection.
I don't know. That's why I don't know anymore. I don't know. Everything is a legend right now. I don't even know if we're really listening to this music. I don't know if there's really a show. I don't know if Murph the Magic Tone, who's staring at me across. I don't know anymore. I'm so confused. It's all conspiracy theory. I don't know. But you know what I do know, Bill?
What's that, Michael?
If someone were to ask me, hey, man, you a Democrat? Hey, man, you a Republican?
Boo!
I do know that would say, fuck that noise. My ass is gray.
Woo!
Woo!
I like it.
All right, everybody. Catch Bill Reed, Armchair Quarterback, armchairquarterback.net.
What?
That's right. And you can always catch us here. GrayMattersRadio.org. Every Monday or Tuesday, depending on when we fucking decide to record.
Yeah.
And I am your host.
Check out the Armchair QB on Facebook.
You should.
The Book of Face.
The Book of Face. Allegedly. Allegedly. And I'm Michael Devine, America's Counselor. 614 Radio Network. Peace out, everybody. You be good to each other.